In this video, I'm going to show you 10 ways that I use my BG16 pendulum. So the BG16 pendulum, for those who've never heard of it, it is a pendulum developed by Abraham Karim from the science he created called BioGeometry. This pendulum is designed specifically to resonate with what would be considered BG3, otherwise known as BioGeometry 3. And so those are three energetic qualities that resonate with this very harmonizing, universal, supportive energy. In this video, I'm going to show you 10 ways how I use this pendulum, but please know that it is absolutely not limited to 10 ways. There's probably an infinite amount of ways to use this pendulum, but this is just to give you guys an example of some real world applications of using this pendulum. So let's go to number 1. First up, we've got BioGeometry Signatures. So BioGeometry signatures are linear patterns that resonate with different body parts or organ functions. And there are two main factors that define a biogeometry signature. The first being that the correct shape information is present. That way the body or the body part or organ can become in resonance with the biogeometry signature. And the second is that it has what biogeometry would consider BG3. So you see here, as I hover over each one of these, my pendulum is resonating, so it's going to react and it's spinning. So this is a really fabulous tool to have alongside the biogeometry signature book. And so here I'm going to show an example. I've chosen one of the intestines signatures to draw, and you can see it looks pretty similar. It looks like the shape information's there. And so I always will check with my pendulum, and it doesn't look like I'm getting any resonance. I'm going to go ahead and give it another go here. Sometimes it's best to really just practice them and memorize them. That way you can get into the flow. And so I'm going to take my pendulum, test it again, and I'm getting a spin, so I know I've drawn it effectively. So this is a great way to use the pendulum to know you're really getting the max potency out of the biogeometry signatures. And it shows a little part in the book of ways to apply it. There's all kinds of great information in here. So this pendulum is super handy to have alongside to know that you've drawn these biogeometry signatures with that centering energy. Up next, we've got design. So this is another way I love to use my pendulum is when I'm working on different designs, I'll always test it and see if it's resonating with that centering energy. And so although traditional means of art or paper, pens, whatever, are totally fine in order to design with, I just personally am more geared towards digital design and fabrication. And so how the BG16 pendulum comes in handy is being able to test what you've created. And so here I printed out some designs, and I'll use my pendulum to test and show you guys how I'm getting different reads based off the different design. And so this one has a little spin, barely any. The spin picks back up on this design. I get a nice hearty spin from this design, and then it diminishes again on this design. And being able to test in this way helps me feel more comfortable to move into different mediums, and then I like to always test and check out to make sure that the design holds strong regardless of the medium. So here I have some wooden cutouts, and here I've got some acrylic cutouts with the same designs, and I just always want to check with my pendulum to make sure that the design and the shape information is stable enough that it's going to remain. And this leads me to the next one, which is charging items. So these trays are filled with that beneficial energy emission. So here I just took the baseline read of an apple. I let it sit on there for like 5 minutes, come back, and I see it has been amplified. So this does not only pertain to fruit, but in our household we tend to charge just about everything that we can fit on a tray. And I do want to mention that I've made these 2 tray files available on my website for download for free for personal use. So I would love to hear from you guys if you end up using the file, whether printing, laminating it, laser cutting it. I would love to hear your thoughts and feedback about these designs. So the trays are not the only way to charge items, but you can even charge yourself, and this is with the pendulum. So the BG16 pendulum has an emission of that centering energy out of the tip. So instead of just using it as a detection tool, you can actually manually spin it, ideally clockwise, onto something, onto the energy field of your food, of your body, of your jewelry, and it will infuse whatever it is with that centering energy. And so this is a great use of the pendulum to entrain the system to get into that sacred space and into that centering quality. Next up is got to be one of my favorite ways to use the pendulum, and it's through rotation and orientation. I think it's my favorite because it's so simple and fast and effective, and I usually use it the most on my houseplants. Houseplants love it. Also when I'm planting into the ground. And so you can see here I'm using the pendulum with my coffee. And so if I decide to put my coffee right here on this table, I'm going to orient it in a way that it is the most blessed and the most delicious. Moving on to number 5, using the pendulum on the body. So many of us are familiar with the term chakra, or these energy centers in our body. And so here I'm showing you I use the pendulum in order to locate and connect more with these energy centers. Moving on to number 6, mitigating EMFs. So this method is actually really quite simple. I want you to pay close attention here. All you have to do is this, and all your EMF problems are solved. Okay, I wish it was that easy, but the phones aren't going anywhere, let's be real. So this pendulum's super handy whenever I'm working to harmonize an EMF device, like a cell phone, for example. And there's all kinds of different products and techniques and ways that people are trying to mitigate these EMFs that are starting to swamp our world. So the BG16 pendulum is a really great way to see if you've really done a proper application of these different cell phone cases or stickers or whatever it is that is claiming to harmonize EMFs. And so although I totally recommend BioGeometry's products, there are a lot of different products out there that you can test for yourself. Okay, since I'm alright with looking like kind of a weirdo at the grocery store, I use my BG16 pendulum to choose produce. And so yes, of course, these oranges already have some life force in them, but if I want a little extra kick, I'll choose the one with the biggest spin. Alright, moving on to number 8, Geopathic Stress. And how I use my pendulum in this scenario is when I'm working to transmute a geopathic stress line, which can be done through different design principles or shapes or number qualities. I like to use my pendulum after I've applied a certain design and to see that it has been transmuted to be running this beneficial energy that was not running through the line previously. Number 9, the human archetype ruler. So this is a tool that we learn how to use in advanced biogeometry training, and if I could summarize it in a sentence or two, it's basically this archetypal map that we can go into detail to see how our subtle bodies are doing. And you see here the pendulum is spinning, and this is a useful detection tool because when you see here, for instance, I'm just getting a back and forth, there's a break in my energy of my subtle body, and so we learn how to use this detection device to find a problem, and then we can apply a corrective shape to it in order to help support the functioning of our subtle bodies. Now, I know I didn't really go into detail here, but it is one of the ways I use my BG16 pendulum, so I wanted to give you guys a visual of what that is, and maybe you'll want to check out biogeometry training. And we are at number 10, curiosity. So I love having this pendulum handy so I can test just about everything, and it's always very interesting to see what inherently has this centering energy to it. For instance, just because there's a lot of cool geometry on something doesn't really mean that it's going to be all that great. And I use my pendulum to decide which cup has the most supportive shape or energy to it that I like to decide to drink out of. Even little things like, oh, which pickleball paddle is going to be most supportive to my game? You know, the possibilities are endless. I think you get the idea. So thank you guys so much for coming by to see how I use my BG16 pendulum. I would love to hear from you. How do you use it? How would you use it? How would you like to use it? What do you think it could be used for? There is infinite amount of potential ideas and ways to apply these tools. So I would love to hear your guys' thoughts. And don't forget to share, like, and subscribe if you would like to see more harmonizing content in your feed. All right, thanks so much and see you next time.